In most states, voting maps change once a decade. In North Carolina, they've changed 7 times in 9 years.
Voters in North Carolina should choose their representatives in Congress. You should not be choosing your voters.
Last month, the Republican-controlled state legislature approved a new map. The changes focus on 2 districts in eastern North Carolina. 6 counties are moved from District 3 to District 1, while 4 counties are shifted in the opposite direction.
The motivation behind this redraw is simple and singular. Draw a new map that will bring an additional Republican seat to the North Carolina Congressional delegation.
Democratic Congressman Don Davis's home county of Greene has been moved from District 1 to District 3, which is currently represented by Republican Greg Murphy. Davis has not announced where or if he will run. Meanwhile, Murphy has announced he will run for re-election in the redrawn District 3. With these changes, analysts say Republicans will likely control 11 of the state's 14 congressional seats. The 1st district has historically been a district with a black population of about 40%. The new map reduces that to 32%, while increasing the district's Republican voter base.
The current map and the new map are illegal racial gerrymanders that violate the Voting Rights Act, reauthorized by Congress and signed by President Bush in 2006. This is true even if the U.S. Supreme Court does not agree. In the long, sordid history of North Carolina gerrymandering, we are breaking new ground, and I am outraged about that.
North Carolina has a long history of redistricting battles, with both parties having drawn advantageous maps when in power. Courts say lawmakers can draw maps to help their party win, but cannot draw maps that target voters because of their race.
Let me be clear and let me emphasize, racial data was not used.
North Carolina's redistricting is part of a broader national pattern. Republican states like Texas began redrawing maps earlier this year following encouragement from President Trump. Then, Missouri followed. Now California Democrats have proposed their own map changes in response. The result is a high-stakes redistricting battle that could determine control of Congress.
President Trump has called on Republican-controlled states across the country to fight fire with fire. This map answers that call.
But as partisan battles rage in multiple states, many North Carolinians express concern about the focus on national politics over local needs.
Let me start off by saying I don't mean any disrespect to my fellow Americans. However, I do not care what's happening in Texas, and I do not care what's happening in California. What I care about is what's happening here in North Carolina and how our state legislators and senators are representing the people of North Carolina.
These new districts will take effect for the 2026 midterm elections, unless the courts strike them down. Several legal challenges have already been filed. Joining me now is Chris Cooper, political science professor at Western Carolina University. Chris, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So I recently read an op-ed that said the state sport in North Carolina is no longer college basketball, it's redistricting. Help us understand why we as a state draw maps so frequently.
Yeah, we do it all the time, right? And I think part of it is that we're a purple state, right? So we're a state where if you want to redraw the maps to gain an advantage, you can do it, right? There are places on the map where you can gain if you're a Democrat, you can gain if you're a Republican. So I think that's a piece of it. I think another reason why is that our governor does not have veto power over these maps. So in the vast majority of other states, if you have a Republican legislature, you've got a Democratic governor or vice versa, and the legislature passes a map out, the governor vetoes it before it ever gets to the courts. That doesn't happen here. So the only real place to get any sort of change if you're not in the majority party is through the court system. All those court cases lead to more and more maps.
The most recent redistricting efforts were done, Republican leaders say, at the request of President Trump. What is the precedent for a president to directly call on states to redistrict?
Yeah, I mean, it really, I know we use the word unprecedented a lot lately. This one really, truly is unprecedented. We don't see this. We don't see presidents calling for this explicitly, and we certainly don't see it mid-decade. So the notion of mid-decade redistricting ordered by a president, the playbook's out the window. We're flying blind at this point.
We've seen both sides redraw maps. Is this just fair game in politics?
I think that's the open question, right? I mean, it definitely does happen with both parties. You're exactly right. I mean, this is a people in power problem, not a problem of one party or the other. You see it nationally right now, right? So Texas says, we're going to redraw and benefit the Republicans. You see California say, we're going to redraw and benefit the Democrats. Missouri and North Carolina get in for the Republicans. Virginia says we want to be in for the Democrats. Both parties clearly do it. Whether it's fair game or not, this is where the courts are going to come in, right? And they're ultimately going to decide, is this an illegal racial, are they diluting the votes of African-American voters? That's ultimately what's going to be at play here. And so your fair game question is a good one. I think the courts are going to be the ones who decide.
You mentioned California. What's going on there is pretty interesting. They just Prop 50, the ballot referendum that essentially bypasses, they had an independent commission that draws maps that was established in 2008, but then had a ballot referendum that voters voted to bypass that so that Democratic lawmakers could essentially draw the maps in their own favor. How does a process like that impact what's going on in North Carolina and other states who might be also looking at redistricting?
Yeah, I think we heard it, right? We heard it when Senator Hurst was presenting his case to the General Assembly for why they drew the maps in North Carolina. He said, look, California did it. President Trump asked us to. So I think there is a clear nationalization here. It's no longer the case that states are sort of acting in isolation. One state weighs in and does something, another one comes back. It's this tit-for-tat redistricting that we're going to continue to see. My guess is when it's all said and done, we're probably going to end up partisan-wise nationally about where we were at the beginning. The true victim here is going to be any sense of competitive districts, because that's what we're slashing in California, in North Carolina, in Texas, soon to be in Virginia.
I'm curious too, how does all of this impact voter engagement, public trust within the process? Does it have any sort of impact on it?
Yeah, and it's all negative, right? This is confusing. There's no question about it. So if you live in the former first district where now you're in the third, or you were in the third and now you're in the first, it's really difficult to keep track of. And I think for a whole lot of folks, they just kind of feel like a pox on both their houses. They're both looking out for their own interests. I don't want any part of this process. And that's what's really concerning. I think we should also think a little bit about the downstream effects of this. So yes, it's about congressional maps, clearly, but there are other things in life that we determine by congressional districts. So a good North Carolina example, the North Carolina School for Science and Math, they say, hey, the number of people we're going to accept depends on which congressional district you live in. So we're trying to get some sort of geographic representation. So when we redraw the lines, we put a county in or take a county out, it means more than just that line for that district on that day.
And Representative Don Davis, caught in the middle of this, he recently introduced federal legislation that would ban mid-district or mid-decade redistricting. Do you think a reform like that has any legs, or do you not see it passing?
I don't think it's going to pass, right? We've seen things like this before. We saw H.R. 1 a few years ago that had more than just that, but it had that as a component of it, and we saw it didn't really go anywhere. I don't think we're in a place to get that kind of, bipartisan agreement that you would need. So unfortunately, it doesn't mean it doesn't matter to bring it up. It does, but I don't think it's going to pass.
Already court challenges to the most recent redistricting. What do you think happens next? What should we be looking out for?
Yeah, I think we should be looking out for a case that's going to be pretty clear, right? So we've already seen one court challenge. We may see more. What the plaintiffs are going to argue is that this map unfairly dilutes the vote of African-American voters in the northeastern part of the state, denies them the right to pick a candidate of their choice. Obviously, you've got the defense who's going to come in and say, no, that's not true at all. We drew these maps not based on race at all. We drew them based on partisanship. And this is why when you hear the proponents of the map saying, hey, we did this to benefit the Republican Party, it's actually a smart legal strategy, because the courts have essentially said, we're not wild about gerrymandering partisan-wise, but we don't think it's really any of our business. So you can actually get away with partisan gerrymandering at this point. So the whole case is going to be about the degree to which race mattered or did not matter in the drawing of these maps.
How has technology changed or evolved the redistricting process? Because I imagine nowadays, with how advanced AI is, you can probably use that to your advantage if you're drawing a map and plugging in certain things and doing it in a way where you can create a advantage in a district. How has the emergence of technology really impacted this?
It's made it much easier to gerrymander, right? And so we see this as two things at once. It's technology and it's increasingly consistent voting patterns. So to grab the technology piece first, right? Anybody can log in to free apps in their pajamas, get online and draw district maps. Some people do it for fun, believe it or not, right? So if you are a state legislator and you say, hey, we drew these maps in front of you, we drew it in the legislative building. Well, what do they do when they're at home, right? They just don't forget that information. Anybody can do it for free at any time. You don't even need coding skills anymore. You can literally drag and drop your way to a new congressional map in the state of North Carolina. So we've seen that, and at the same time, geography precincts, these sort of small geographic units, are increasingly predictable in terms of how they're going to turn out and vote in the next election. So you put those two things together, it's really predictable, it's really accessible. What that means is it's easier to gerrymander.
And speaking of next election, what are some things to look out for with District 1 and 3 in this next election?
Sure. I mean, it's going to be a really interesting case. One reason why is that it seems like Don Davis is going to run in the 1st Congressional District. Well, guess what? He doesn't actually live there anymore. He actually lives in what is now the 3rd Congressional District. There's no law against that. We've had folks do it before, run out of district, but that is an interesting little twist to this whole 1 versus 3 affairs. You're going to have somebody running for their district who no longer lives in their district, and then we're just going to have to see, can Don Davis do maybe not the impossible, but the highly improbable, which is to hold on to a district that was quite explicitly drawn to get him out of office?
And keep an eye on those court cases too, right?
That's right, absolutely.
Right. We'll be tracking it. Chris, thanks for joining us. Appreciate your insight.
Thank you.